Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is Saturday, 10:42. Hope everyone's doing good. So, yeah, I've been knee deep in the world of the American Western and also the Italian Western. And I've been reviewing all kinds of movies. I got this big collection of DVDs about a month or so ago of all of these westerns that I had never seen before, and there's a lot of old school, well, really old school westerns on some of these discs. Have I finished up the first. There's four discs total, four DVDs. I finished up the first batch of movies, and I'm on the second disc right now. And I just uploaded the first movie I watched on the second disc, or no, I should say the second movie I watched on the second disc, the Hellbenders, which is probably the best movie I saw. It's just killer movie. So yeah, super fun. That's probably my favorite so far. And again, I'm always checking out stuff, checking out other movies, and trying to check out new things. A lot of things I haven't seen. I try to I have a big variety of tastes, and so this show is going to be about something totally different. So I'm going tomorrow to go see Thunderbolts, which is this new Marvel movie that at first I was, well, I don't know. A buddy of mine who is a good, really great friend, and he's a big time movie fan. We've watched tons of movies together. So he kind of asked me about going, and so this show is going to be about going to see Thunderbolts and my feelings around it, and had a lot of reservations about seeing it, and actually now I'm kind of looking forward to seeing it. And so this show is going to be about my feelings about this movie and what I know about it and what I don't know about it, which is probably better, a better thing. And I'm going to go see it tomorrow. We're going to go to an early show, a matinee. I haven't been to a matinee in the theater in a really long time, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. I mean, for starters, it's a lot cheaper, so that's good. But even I have to say, even though I've had some not great experiences going to the movies this year, 2025 has been a pretty dismal year, I think, so far as new movies. The best movie I saw this year by far was The Monkey, that was directed by Osgood Perkins. That movie just was super fun. It was super gory. It was really hilarious. It's a black comedy. It's really kind of demented. I love the shit out of that movie. I saw that probably a month ago or so. It's been a while, but it's been out for a little while. Osgood Perkins is a really fantastic director. I feel like he's one of my favorite directors right now. And so, he did Long Legs, which I really love. Black Coat's Daughter, which I have not seen, but I heard is really awesome. And he's got another new film coming out. He's been really cranking them out. So I'm really excited to see what this new movie will be that he is going to be putting out. But other than that, it's been pretty mixed this year. I saw The Wolfman, which was incredibly disappointing. I was really, looking forward to that movie. That was directed by Lee Winnell, who has made some really great movies. The Invisible Man kind of reboot, remake, if you will, a few years back, which is awesome. Upgrade, another killer movie. I'm a big fan of the Saw franchise, and he also started that franchise, and he actually starred in it. He wrote the I think it's the first two Saw movies, but he basically created one of the people one of the main people who was responsible for the Saw franchise, along with director James Wong. And killer track record, but I was really, really let down on just kind of how ridiculous the Wolfman was. That was a real disappointment. I saw that in the theater, so that was really disappointing. And then the last movie I saw in the movies that was, I don't know, there were things about it that I thought were just absolutely fantastic, and ultimately I was pretty let down with that film. And I know I am kind of the lone man standing, or the last man. Well, I should say I'm on my own island criticizing this movie, because everybody and their grandmother is has embraced this movie to the point of where most people out there, I follow a lot of YouTube folks, and then just people in general, but a lot of reviewers, people who have film pages, film channels, critics, across the board, people are hailing this as easily being the best movie of 2025, and also one of the best movies that's come out in even the last 5 or 10 years, which is crazy. So, and that is Sinners. I really thought that movie had some incredible moments, and I really enjoyed it to a certain degree. But I did have a lot of issues with that film, and I really pulled back from it. So I did a big show on that, and I know my views are completely opposite in some ways of what a lot of people are saying about that movie. So in general, I I'm, I'm kind of tired of new Hollywood films. I go through this stage every now and then where I'm into it, and then I pull way back because I get disappointed a lot. But last year, 2024 was a just kind of an exceptional year for movies, especially in horror films. But this year has been kind of rough. I will say Sinners is, you know, it's worth seeing, and I think there's some really fantastic things about that movie. Ultimately, I felt like, well, I won't go into it. You should just check out the review for what it's worth. But I do recommend people seeing it. But I just feel like people are, I don't know, I feel like people as far as people's opinions of it, and it's fine. People should have all, have their individual opinions, and that's great and that's wonderful. But I think, it's not sacred ground. I mean, things should be criticized and critiqued and looked at in a subjective way or level. And my big thing with that film was that it had so many great ideas, and it really executed some of those so well. But I initially felt like it was two or three movies in one. I felt like it brought some ideas that were really great, and then it just never really explored it. One of the things that is wild to me is that people are really have said that there's one kind of infamous scene in the film where there's this musical montage that is good. I think it's really great until it's not, because I feel like it's so it goes so into outer space that I felt like it, and I understand the point, and it says a lot of valuable things about art and culture, but I think it got to the point of where kind of it was just kind of absurd, and it just took me out of the movie, out of the kind of the grounded nature of the film to a degree. I don't know. It just, I'll probably see it again. Maybe I'll have a different opinion, but I felt like this musical montage that's in the film, and most people out there have seen the movie now. I felt it got to a point of where it just kind of got ridiculous, and it took me out of the movie to where I felt like I was, suddenly watching Moulin Rouge. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a huge fan of musicals. There are some that are better than others. There are some that are good, but I'm not a huge fan of the genre. And when it crossed a certain line with that kind of element, it just kind of took me out of the film. And story wise, I felt there it introduced these two or three different aspects of it that felt like it could have been those things could have been their own separate movie. And again, honestly, the music in the film is really key. It's really important, and I think it says a lot about culture and history, and it's a critique of racism, and it handles a lot of these things really, really well. The acting is incredible. The first couple acts of the film, incredible character development, some really great direction. But I felt once I got to the quote unquote vampire element, it it was not as exciting. It didn't keep up for me. It didn't keep up the momentum that it established, and it was and this is out of context for anybody, for the few folks who haven't seen this movie, but it feels like most people have seen this movie at this time. But when I got to a point of where I saw a couple of hundred vampires kind of doing the Irish jig, I checked out. I was like, yeah, I this is just silly. I just felt like it just took me out of the it took me out of the film, and I thought there's a like kind of like a second ending to the film as far as where it essentially turns into this revenge film, and I felt that it was really good, but that could have been its own separate movie. Um, and I thought how they wrapped up the story around the vampire aspect, especially around the head vampire. I just again it just I felt like somebody or something should have kind of pulled in the reins a little bit to where it just went off the rails. And I love that it was incredibly creative and it was really ambitious, and it is ambitious, but it got lost in the woods for me. It lost in the sticks as far as those things. Um, but anyway, so I'm gonna go see tomorrow. I'm gonna go see Thunderbolts, and I have had a lot of mixed things about going to see this movie. I have talked a lot. I'm a huge, at in my core, at my heart, I'm a huge, massive comic book nerd. I grew up watching. I mean, I grew up collecting comic books. Every now and then, I still buy comic books. I every as a kid, I used to buy comic books and collect comic books, left and right. Massive fan. My favorite character is the Batman, but I really got into the Daredevil, big Avengers fan, Power Man, Iron Fist, Captain America, huge fan of Captain America. Oh, tons and tons of comics, and the X Men, and then when the MCU kind of emerged, it was it's like closing in on almost 15 to 20 years now of Marvel films. The first couple of years of the films that were put out, I thought were just spectacular. I really, I'm a huge fan of the Avenger films and the Thor films for the most part, except the last one, which I haven't seen, but I've been kind of scared to watch it. But there were a plethora, a whole bunch of fantastic Marvel movies that came out, and to kind of cap it all off, I felt, which to me, overall, I think is the greatest Marvel movie ever made, and that is the Avengers Endgame, the Avengers Infinity War. Endgame, which was the sequel, obviously is a masterpiece too. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of mind-boggling how they were able to, the Russo brothers who directed Endgame, how they were able to pull off what they did, because I felt like that movie Infinity War was such a masterpiece and was so satisfying, and it was so The stakes were so high. It just set the bar so incredibly high, and how they were able to make a sequel to that and still keep that momentum. And for the most part, in hindsight, that movie is just as good as Infinity War. Infinity War is still my favorite, but Endgame is just so spectacular, and just how ambitious that film is, and how it really pulled off and really pulled it all off. And just and the spectacle that movie is, how they were able to do that is pretty bewildering and inspiring. And ever since then, I've felt like, you know, there's been a few. I'd say like the last couple of Spider-Man films of uh, the Tom Holland was very very good. I really love that one, but that's been out for a few years, and it's been quite a few years now since those Avenger movies were put out. And I have been just utterly disappointed with all of the MCU movies that have come out since then. Everything has just never been as good. I mean, they established something so high. They put up, I felt like with those Avenger films, they put the bar so high, and I think, which is great and fantastic, but for them to continually, with all of the movies that they've released since then, it's just so blatantly obvious that really nothing has come close to capturing that energy that those films had and the spectacle. So it feels like all of those films were kind of just set up to kind of almost defeat themselves. They've just never been strong, and they've either been really mediocre or bland or kind of decent or just not good at all. And I reached a point where one of the last Marvel movies, it might have been the last Marvel movie I saw in the theater, was Ant-Man, Quantum Mania, which I think was the third one. That movie was so awful that I literally checked out of the MCU. That movie was, for me at that time, the nail in the coffin, where I was just like, okay, I think I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. And that being said, I have most of the earlier Marvel movies that I mentioned a few minutes ago. I have most of those on Blu-ray. At my core, I still love those movies. I still rewatch them. I'll always love those movies. And at my core, I'll always be a Marvel fan. But as far as newer films, even the Guardians of the Galaxy, the third one, I was really disappointed with that film. And so it's been a never-ending sea of just disappointments ever since, I think, Endgame and the last Spider-Man film. I think it was called Homecoming, which was really great. That movie is pretty amazing. But again, just been really disappointed with everything, and nothing has been. I don't even think even close to those other films, and so when I saw Quantum Mania, and I believe it was the third Ant Man, I saw that in the theater. I literally like checked out halfway through, maybe even before halfway through, by the second act, and I checked out. I was exhausted. I actually fell asleep during the movie, which never happens. And it was just a bunch of white noise to me. And that was it. I gave up. And I'm like, I've had no interest in any of the Marvel movies, and even that being said, the DC movies that have come out. So I'm a huge fan of, when it comes to DC, I think the Batman with Robert Pattinson is a masterpiece. That's There's so many great Batman films, but that one for me is the definitive version. And then the other film for me, I do like the first Wonder Woman film. I think that's actually really really good. I've never seen the second one. I heard that one was not very good. I the other film in the DC world that I really really love is the Justice League, the Snyder cut, Zack Snyder's extended cut, the 4 hour version. The original theatrical version that was put out was atrocious, but the director's cut I think is a masterpiece. I think that movie, it's 4 hours. I have it on Blu-ray. It's incredible. It really is. There's moments of that Snyder cut of the Justice League that it came out. It came out about 3 or 4 years ago, and I bought it on Blu-ray. It wasn't. It was. It came out during COVID, so their theaters were not open. It was only available on streaming, but they did put it out on Blu-ray, and I bought it out. I heard at that time that that movie was just spectacular, and so it had been a while. I didn't get a chance to see it, obviously, because I don't stream movies. And then I think it was 6 months or 7 months after that movie had its core, after it was streaming, it was released on Blu-ray in physical media form because that movie was so successful. And I snatched it up, and I had heard that it was really, really good, and I've seen it, a few times. I'm probably going to watch it again soon. It's amazing. I think again, right, for me, the greatest Marvel movie ever made, I think, is Infinity War, without a doubt. Thanos for me is my all-time favorite villain. He had always been my favorite villain as a kid, and I just felt they captured his, wickedness and his evilness in such an incredible way. The stakes were so high, but I do think Justice League is so good that the Snyder cut is almost, it almost rivals that movie. It's not as good. I mean, because nothing can really touch that movie, Infinity War, but it's pretty awesome. And especially with what they did around the characterization of the Justice League superheroes, and with Steppenwolf, who is the lead villain, they did such an incredible job. But other than that, and the DC universe to me is just, it's just there. I don't, I don't. I'm not a fan of those movies. I'm more of a. I think in comparison with DC and Marvel, Marvel has, well, there's like 1,000 movies at this point, but I feel like Marvel has a better track record. They have put out better quality movies. And early on in this first phase or so of these movies coming out, they were kind of hitting it hard, and they were really riding this real hot streak where they really had these consistent movies coming out one after another. And for the most part, for a while, those movies were all pretty fantastic. They really, the Captain America movies, the Spider-Man films, they were all really, really good. And they hit this stride. DC, I felt, never had that. They always, it felt like everything was kind of a train wreck. And it was not really, nothing was ever focused. And with Thunderbolts, which is the newest, I think it's today is, well, no, today's Saturday, and I think Thunderbolts opened Thursday night. And this is kind of the movie that's like the next, the big MCU movie. And I should say, I really was, when it comes, the only other film that I saw last year that was a Marvel movie that I thought was incredible was Deadpool and Wolverine. That movie fucking rules. And that's kind of its own separate thing, but that movie was just incredible. And I've done I know I did a show on that, but the Thunderbolts, which is the latest MCU film, just opened. I think it came out Thursday, and this is like opening weekend, and this is kind of heralded as like kind of the big kind of start of the season. But I really don't know what else is coming out that looks that great. So, but in all honesty, growing up as a kid and just in general, I had no knowledge. I have no idea what Thunderbolts is. I saw a trailer for it. I know a little bit more about it now, but I saw a trailer briefly for it late last year, and I was kind of indifferent to it. It didn't really look particularly exciting, and especially with the fatigue that's set in as far as going to see Marvel movies, I I don't know. Honestly, could care less. So fast forward, a few months, and with the release coming up, and again, it just opened Thursday, this past Thursday, of Thunderbolts. One of my one of my really good friends, Mike Vickers, who is a another real big movie buddy of mine. We go to lots of movies together, and we have a lot of the same interests. And we've talked about the whole kind of Marvel thing a lot, and he also has said too that he has big time fatigue and could really care less about the last you know 5 years of movies that have come out, or however long it's been since Endgame and Infinity War. And it's probably been longer than 5 years. And we've talked about that a lot, and the fatigue of it. And he was and I and he we were talking about the last week. We were talking about the Thunderbolts coming out, and he said that he was a big comic book fan growing up, and he still is. He's still like again, he kind of has the same feelings about the first wave of Marvel movies. He really was a huge fan, and then after you know the Avenger films, it was just everything was so disappointing. So he doesn't have any desire to see it. But he was telling me a lot about Thunderbolts, like the kind of the origins and what that comic book is and the characters, what that's about. I Growing up, I had no idea who the Thunderbolts were. I'm not totally unfamiliar with it. And he described it as like those characters as being something similar to the kind of similar to the Suicide Squad, but a little bit well more interesting and a little darker. And he said that what he gathered from the trailer and from what they were doing with this newer film was like they basically really chopped out a lot of key elements. So he basically said, I have no interest in seeing the movie. So for me, that was another check in the column of being even less excited to see Thunderbolts, or more than I already was. So that was that. And then so and I saw a review for Thunderbolts. Like again, it just came out, and I saw a quick review from a YouTube guy that I watch. That's pretty good. I like his stuff, and he's pretty he's pretty spot on. And I watch his channel from time to time, and he was the first guy that I saw that did a review of Thunderbolts, and he really kind of tore it apart, and he really criticized it in a way of that was identical to me. That's made every film, in the last 5 to 7 years be so problematic, and that really was like, okay, well, here we go again. It's just more, when is this shit ever going to end? And like, come on. So that left me to a degree even more disenfranchised on seeing Thunderbolts, and I even before and up to that point I had no interest in seeing it. And again, these are characters, and it's a story that had never heard of before. I'm not familiar with these characters at all. I don't know anything about them. I never came across their those comics when I was a kid. So and then the other day I saw two other reviews of Thunderbolts from another YouTube channel that I actually think is better, and I think they're a little bit more sound in their reviews. I think they're a little bit more I think they're really intelligent, and I think they have a better I don't know, just more of a fair perspective on things. and they're more open minded about what they talk about and how they express those things. So, but they said it was really, really good. They said that this film was really, really good and that it really set things on course again for the most part of the MCU, and that it was a lot darker. It was very unique, a totally different thing, totally original. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. And then so at that time, my buddy Zafar asked me about going to see it on Thursday night. It was playing. It's playing at the Colonial. So he asked me about going to see it, and I wasn't able to go because I had a rehearsal that Thursday night. So then we talked about going to see it again. So we're gonna go see it on. We're gonna go to a matinee tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So I don't know. I find myself now. I'm kind of excited to see it, but I'm going in with a little bit of trepidation. So this is a whole new set of characters, a whole new storyline. I don't know anything about it. I don't know. I can't compare it to anything. I've read the comics. I'm literally going into it cold. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So this was a show today that I just wanted to talk about my feelings around Thunderbolts. For what it's worth. I mean, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But my feelings about it, having uh, a pretty mixed bag as far as my thoughts about the movie, my enthusiasm. But I'm actually more on the side of where I'm a little bit more excited to see this movie now. And again, just going to the movies, like even if it's not a great movie, I really enjoy the experience. I love that part of it. So that part of it is always fun and exciting. But so I'll definitely do a review of Thunderbolts after I see it, and that will be up probably in a couple of days or so. But I just wanted to make a video about my thoughts on the Marvel MCU world, and in particular around going to see Thunderbolts. So thank you, and have a great day. Peace.